Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new camp build. And as we've got the Mothman Equinox running at the moment, and a few new Mothman-themed items in the atomic shop, I thought this would be a good opportunity to do a Mothman-styled build. So, let's have a look at this thing. Yeah, this has been a bit of a head-scratching build, this one. I was trying to find a cool place to build this that really suited what I wanted to do, which my idea was to build it near a town and near a road, but I needed a decent bit of flat ground for it, and apparently I could not have all three, so I settled on a location here, down at the bottom of the ash heap, which is somewhere I've built before, albeit not recently, somewhere I showed off recently as well, a nice little bit of flat ground on a little sort of raised outcropping up here. It's a decent-sized flat area, and a bit off the beaten path, which is not really what I wanted, but at the same time, it works as a kind of lonely Mothman-themed chapel, so it's come out quite well, this in the end. So, starting with the foundations, as one does, I've got one in already there just to make life a little bit easier, so I don't have to fight with the lie of the land, because it's not quite as flat as I would like this bit of ground, but it's close enough. So we are going with 3 across and 6 along for this particular foundation. Relatively simple. We're going to make a couple of adjustments to it in just a moment. The whole build is not the most complicated thing, but with the decoration and everything, it has come out quite nicely, I think. So, we're going to take this central one here and just pop it up a little bit for what will basically be our altar. So, that's just going to be at the back of the main room. We'll get some walls in here. Nice and easy, just using the basic wooden wall set we all start out with, because it kind of works with that kind of creepy Mothman vibe. And then we're just going to divide off this little back section here, because this is going to be the sort of residential area for the priest. And we'll get some front walls in here. And a little doorway, nice and easy. So, onto the roof. And I'm going to use the Haunted House set for the sloped sections here, but unfortunately we don't have the cap piece like this in the Haunted House set, which is a bit annoying. Same with most of the themed one recently, they don't seem to have this particular piece, which is not too much of a problem a lot of the time, but I really want to go up to a point here, so we'll have to make do. You can't really tell that they don't match from the ground too well anyway, so that does help. We do very much need that half wall at the end though, otherwise you can't snap this particular roof into place, as you may have just noticed. It will not snap to the other roof pieces, it'll only snap if there's a wall directly connected to it, so a little bit of important build order to note there. It's also worth doing this as soon as possible so it doesn't interfere with other walls, or rather other walls don't interfere with trying to get that roof in. But there we go. Front part roofed off. Let's do this little back section that will be our priest's residential area. So we're going to get a little upper floor on here because we're going to need a bedroom and a bathroom up there. Nice and simple. I do wish I'd picked up the Haunted House stairway here. I didn't think I was going to need it really. And to be fair, until now I haven't. But obviously, that was not the case for this particular build. It would have fit nicely, but we'll have to make do with what we've got available. So we're going to use some half walls, as I often like to do on upper floors here. We're going to use half walls most of the way around, but in the centre here, we're going to put a kind of tower, as churches tend to have, and sort of keep the line of that ridge going as well. So we'll use full-sized walls here. Back to the Haunted House set for the roofs on the edge here. Keep that pattern continuing. Now we're going to get some half walls at the top here, because I just want to pop this up a little bit higher for the tower. Although, over the gap here, we can't actually snap the walls, so we'll have to put an extra one underneath, put that half one in. Now if we find the not quite matching, unfortunately, tower roof there, we can now take that wall out, and it's nice and simple. So, going to put the cap on here again. I would recommend using the open-ended one where it connects with that half wall that's sort of floating up there, if you're going to do something similar, just so it avoids some clipping issues, but I'll deal with that later on. And for now, we will close up these gaps. So, to the left of the stairs here, sort of behind the stairs, I'm actually going to wall this off in the decoration phase. I'll put double-sided walls in here so I can wallpaper both sides. And I basically had to do the same thing for that as I'm going to do here to get railings in. And that is that I needed a separate staircase up in order to support it while I took the original staircase out. So let's close these gaps up while we're down here. When it eventually wants to cooperate, because these things are awkward lately. There we go, managed. So, we're going to snap this extra staircase in, just to support the floor, so that I can take this one out. Now, to put the walls in, you'll actually need to put a floor in there temporarily, and then you can double-side the walls. If you only wanted them single-skinned, then you wouldn't need this floor, but either way, you will need to take the staircase out to do it. So, there we go. With it, at least so far, in place, we can move on. Over by the front entrance, I tried a couple of things here that I wanted to have a look at to try and make an interesting sort of entrance. See the first one here, we've got two kind of off-centered foundations that have the point of the roof meeting over the door there, but it's way too wide. It just doesn't look particularly good. So a better option, if you haven't got the piece that I eventually use, which we'll come to, would probably to just use a single foundation in there and the same kind of roof cap that I used on the top there, and maybe use a floating roof or something like that just to make the thing look a bit more interesting. But as I have a better option, we're going to go with that, and that is to use the haunted house porch here. Snap that on the front, as the colours almost match, close enough. And then we'll get a couple of railings on the side of this, and we have a much more interesting entrance than my initial idea. There we go, get the right railings on there. Nice. I'm going to take those foundations out, because I won't be going back to the original idea. Nice. So a simple-ish structure. We need to do a couple of extra bits before we head on to decorating. Get some windows in this section just to break up the otherwise blank surface. I'm actually going to replace all of these with windows, although we're not going to have them open because dark and dingy is the vibe we're going to be going for here. So you may have noticed when we look down the side of the building there that actually we've got a very, very long straight structure that is not particularly interesting, particularly when you look along the length of it. Basically, yep, it's fairly simple, but we're going to go to town and decorate the outside quite a lot, so that will really kind of hide the shape a little bit, draw the eye away from it, which makes a big difference. Particularly as this is a decoration-inspired build, then that's generally the way to go with this sort of thing. And I'm quite happy with how it came out. So, with the structure in place, let's head off, decorate, and then we'll have a little sneaky look around this place. So here we go, one little Mothman chapel. And as you can see, with all the trees and stuff that I've added, I've gone for sort of winter bare trees to make it a bit creepy, and added that spooky well and an outhouse down the side there as well. But coupled with some of the bushes coming back as well, really kind of to draw the eye away from the shape of the building, so you can't tell it's too plain, especially with the Mothman totems out the front there as well, pulling your eye towards those. Makes for a much more interesting look. Yeah, plenty of people done Mothman churches in the past, and probably not the most original idea ever, but, you know, the idea works. It's what the Mothman cultists generally do, is take over churches that exist already around the map, so it makes sense for a camp build as well. And definitely no need to reinvent the wheel on that, just thought I'd have a crack at putting my own stamp on it. But we have a little graveyard over here in the corner. I did think about putting the graveyard sort of much larger and sort of covering the whole front with it, but we only have 3 gravestones, so there would be some excess repetition. In some places, we kind of stuck with that anyway in this build, because I don't have quite as much Mothman-themed stuff as I would have liked for this particular build. But if we keep things like this smaller, it kind of offsets that a little bit. Like using a little rail fence there just to enclose it, gives that kind of the right kind of vibe for a graveyard, I think, there. A few little shrubs and bushes and some of the brambles around, say some different trees and bits and pieces, just giving it that creepy cultist vibe, which works quite nicely. Mothman cometh. Unfortunately, we have no sea in that particular building set, and I didn't want to use anything that was illuminated. It was just a bit much. I don't want to use electric lighting for this one. Those 2 fireplaces sort of slid quite conveniently under those large totems, which was quite helpful. Speaking of illumination, lights are a very big part of this particular build. I've actually used all 50 of the available lights, and they're all torches and stuff like that, just to give that kind of creepy cultist vibe. And it works quite nicely. So here we go. Having a look around the inside. Really like that new chandelier. We'll have a closer look at that in just a moment. But I originally put a single line down the middle, but it just wasn't quite enough, so I thought we'd double it up. Those new wall-mounted flaming skull torches that are really quite cool as well as these floor ones that we'll see around as well. The floor ones I think are Fallout First item that are on the Atomic Shop at the moment as this video goes live, and definitely worth grabbing those if you've got the opportunity, because they are very cool. So yeah, we've gone with that basic, simple little chapel vibe, and I've added a few little Mothman accoutrements around. Got a few totems, things like that around. A couple of mannequins there showing off some of the Mothman Cultist outfits, which are quite cool. So for our little altar section here, you saw earlier on we popped the floor up just to make that a little bit higher up. I snapped a couple of staircases on the side as well. Added some extra bits and pieces around. I've used the Mothman throne here from the Mothman Equinox event that's running at the moment, largely because I don't have anything that's ideal for an altar. I could have improvised, I suppose, but I would have also needed some wall decorations then, and I don't have anything really that Mothman-y for the walls, with one exception that I'll get to in a minute. So I went with the throne and decided to basically set it up that way so we've got a big Mothman vibe in the centre, and the priest can just stand up and talk and sit back down as he likes. Speaking of the priest, we're going to move into his living quarters. So the idea behind this place is that it was basically already here pre-war. So if we have a quick look at this table, you can see I've just tucked that up against the wall. I used the flamethrower there to destroy the table so that I could slide the chairs under it a bit more closely, and it worked quite nicely. And yeah, fit in the gap quite nicely. I'm pleased with that one. Don't know why I haven't done that before, to be honest. Tiny little kitchen there that's reasonably compact. So as I say, the idea here is that it was already here, most of the furniture was already in place, and while I didn't want to go to town on the Mothman stuff on this side, because I would just be repeating a lot of the stuff I did out front, so I wanted the furniture to be stuff that was already here, the cultists have moved in, and just added a little bit of flavour on the top, hence the odd kind of mix in here. Obviously, no workbenches in this build, as it just really wouldn't look right. So we've got the shelter in under the stairs just to allow me to work around that. It's not really part of the build, but there we go. A decent look at that new chandelier here, which I would recommend grabbing if you ever think you're going to use it, because that thing is really, really cool. Somebody's done a great job designing that. Very, very basic little sitting area. I decided not to put any radios or anything like that I would normally put in a living space, just because it didn't really have that right Mothman cultist vibe, so... Instead, we've got a few sort of dead-looking plants around, lots of creepy lights and the like, which really get the vibe going. Heading on upstairs, we're carrying on that most of it was here pre-war vibe, the idea that the priest sort of disappeared after the bombs dropped. For whatever reason, the Mothman cultists found this place, moved in and added their own flavour on top of what was already here. Which kind of works with the pieces we have available and avoids too much repetition. There's a fair bit going on, but what can you do? So there we go, that's our little double-sided wall that's enclosing the bathroom here. So I had to add an extra bit of floor where the staircase is and support it from another position while I did that, which was necessary to put a double side in. You could always go for a single skin and have an accent wall if you wanted, but pretty happy otherwise with how this has come out. Again, carrying on that it was here before they arrived vibe with the bathroom, so we've got old beaten up bathroom furniture in terms of the toilet and the bath and stuff there. Probably doesn't work all that well for the cultist who lives here, but it does make sense if you go with that it was here first vibe. I can't imagine Mothman cultists are doing a whole lot of plumbing, so it makes sense in my head. Yeah, with the little bits of decoration I've added, I tried to go with the candles and other little bits of stuff that kind of relate to the Mothman, like the stein there, and keeping that skulls and weird sort of post-war vibe going on, and the dead plants. The carpet's a bit of an odd choice, but stuff that didn't either match too closely with the walls or clash was a bit of a difficult choice. Everything was a bit too happy in the carpeting options really for this build, but we have to make do with what we've got. And I used my vertical trap thing to create a couple of extra railings there, as we don't have any that snap beside the stairs. I'm going to make our way downstairs. For the lighting in this place, as I mentioned before, I've used all of the lighting slots available, and I've gone for candles and torches and flame-type lights for everything here. I've avoided any electric lighting. I've also avoided stuff like the lanterns, because I just wanted to really get that creepy cultist vibe going, and I think it works quite well. I particularly like some of the torches I've got on the walls that are actually from some of the older sets that hopefully will be reappearing before too long, as they're basically tin cans with candles shoved in them, which is really quite cool. A couple of barrels beside the Mothman throne there, because I figure, you know, booze probably plays its role in their rituals. Really like the pipe organ we've got here. We've got a couple of cool options on that front now, and I felt we needed one of those in the church. You can see the flaming skull wall-mounted torch there that just fit nicely through the gaps. Actually had to put that in first and then move the organ towards it, but it worked quite nicely. And an otherwise fairly standard style church out here, but very much taken over by the cultists. So for these stuffed animal heads on the walls, I've gone for a range of stuff, mostly big scary beasts, but I've deliberately avoided putting a Mothman up there. The basic theory I had for that was that if you're here to worship the Mothman, killing and stuffing his cousin and sticking him up on the wall is probably not going to impress him too much. So, it seems like a bit of an odd contrast that, Let's kill our god and stuff him and put him on the wall doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So that's why I went for other types of heads rather than the Mothman. And I do wish I had a couple of extra Mothman bits, but I think we've made a decent job out of the stuff I have available. So, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. You liked the build, I'm quite pleased with how it came out. If you did, please do consider dropping subs and likes, I do very, very much appreciate it. It really, really helps out. Speaking of, down below the video you can find social media links, merch store and channel memberships if you're interested in supporting the channel that way. Massive, massive thank you to everybody who's done that. I very, very much appreciate that as well. And if you get the chance to join us for live streams as well, we are of course playing Fallout 76, having a great time with the new update at the moment. And we are playing Doom Eternal as well at the moment, which has been a good laugh, so I do hope you'll join us for that as well. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.